The arrival of the Deathworlder fleet changed everything. Part 1. The Galactic Council had existed for 12,000 years. It was a place where 847 different species came together to talk, trade, and keep peace across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. The great station called Harmony 7 floated in orbit around the neutral world of Valaxis Prime. Ships of every shape and size came and went each day. It was the center of civilization. Admiral Daniel Harris stood at the window of the human diplomatic quarters and watched those ships move through space. He was 58 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many battles. Behind him, a small team of officers waited for his orders. Humanity had been part of this galaxy for only 15 years. In that short time, they had learned one important truth. The galaxy feared them. Earth was classified as a Category 9 death world. This meant it was one of the most dangerous planets in known space. The gravity was heavy. The atmosphere was thick with oxygen. The weather was violent. And worst of all, humans had evolved as predators on this harsh world. They were stronger, faster, and tougher than almost every other species in the Council. The aliens did not see this as a gift. They saw it as a threat. Captain Lisa Monroe entered the room. She was 34, with short brown hair and a calm face that hid a sharp mind. She served as the tactical officer aboard the flagship called the Resolute. "Admiral," she said, "Ambassador Wright is on his way. He says there is news from the council session." Harris nodded but did not turn from the window. "Let me guess. They denied our request for full membership again." "Yes, sir." For the 5th time. The door opened and Kevin Wright walked in. He was 45 years old and had spent the last decade trying to convince the galaxy that humans were not monsters. His suit was wrinkled and his face showed the stress of another failed negotiation. "They are afraid of us," Wright said. "They look at our soldiers and see weapons. They look at our ships and see death. No matter what I say, they cannot see past their fear." Harris finally turned from the window. "Then we keep trying. We did not come all this way to give up." Before Wright could respond, an alarm sounded through the station. Red lights flashed on the walls. A moment later, a voice spoke over the communication system. It was speaking in the common trade language that all species used. "Emergency transmission received. All council members report to the main chamber." The 3 humans looked at each other. Something bad had happened. They made their way through the crowded halls of Harmony 7. Aliens of every kind moved around them. Some were tall and thin. Others were short and covered in fur. A few floated through the air on wings or special devices. Most of them moved away from the humans, keeping their distance. The main chamber was a huge dome filled with seats for representatives from every member species. At the center, a holographic display showed a star map. A region on the outer edge of the map was flashing red. High Counselor Meridax stood at the central podium. He was a Valorian, a species known for their blue skin and gentle nature. Valorians were physically weak compared to most species, but they were wise and fair. They had led the council for 3,000 years. "We have received a distress signal from the Kara system," Meridax announced. "The hegemony of Kroth has broken the containment treaty. Their warships have crossed the border and are attacking civilian worlds." A wave of fear moved through the chamber. The Krath were a militaristic species that had been at war with the council centuries ago. A treaty had kept them contained to their own space for 400 years. Now that treaty was broken. "We must send the defense fleet immediately," one representative shouted. "The defense fleet is not ready," another replied. "It would take weeks to mobilize." Harris stepped forward. "The human fleet is ready now. Give us permission to respond." The chamber went silent. Every alien eye turned to look at the human admiral. Meridax shook his head slowly. Admiral Harris, your offer is noted. But the Council cannot authorize military action by a non-member species. The political complications would be too severe. People are dying, Harris said. Right now, as we stand here talking, innocent people are dying. Politics can wait. The answer is no, Admiral. Please return to your quarters. Harris wanted to argue, but Wright put a hand on his shoulder. They walked out of the chamber together, followed by Captain Monroe. This is wrong, Monroe said once they were alone. We have 12 ships ready for combat. We could make a difference. Our hands are tied, Wright replied. If we act without permission, we could destroy everything we have worked for. They returned to the human quarters. Hours passed. Harris paced back and forth while Monroe monitored the communication channels. The news got worse with each report. The Krath were not just attacking military targets. They were bombing cities. They were killing civilians by the millions. Then, late in the night cycle, a direct transmission came through. It was encrypted with Valorian codes. Monroe played the message. A face appeared on the screen. It was Councillor Threvix, an elderly Valorian who had spent decades fighting for human rights in the Council. His blue skin was pale, and his eyes were filled with terror. Admiral Harris, Threvix said, his voice shaking. The Krath have reached our homeworld. The Council fleet has retreated. They have abandoned us. Please, I beg you, help us. You are our only hope. The transmission ended. Harris stood in silence for a long moment. Then he turned to his officers. Contact all ships, he said. We are leaving in 1 hour. Wright stepped forward. Daniel, if you do this, the Council will never forgive us. Everything we have built will be gone. Harris looked at his old friend. Kevin, I did not join the fleet to follow orders. I joined to protect innocent people. If the Council wants to punish me for that, so be it. He walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back. Are you coming? Wright closed his eyes for a moment. Then he nodded. Someone needs to handle the paperwork. 1 hour later, 12 human warships broke orbit and jumped into hyperspace. The galaxy would never be the same. The arrival of the Deathworlder fleet changed everything. Part 2. The human fleet moved through hyperspace like arrows fired from a bow. 12 ships, each one built on Earth. Each one crewed by men and women who had chosen to disobey. Orders to save strangers they had never met. Admiral Harris stood on the bridge of the Resolute and watched the swirling lights of hyperspace on the main screen. The journey to Valorian space would take 6 hours. 6 hours to prepare for a battle they might not survive. Captain Monroe approached him with a tablet in her hand. Sir, I have finished the tactical analysis. The Krath have at least 3 dreadnoughts in the system, plus several hundred support ships. We are outnumbered badly. I know, Harris said. But we have advantages they do not expect. Our ships are tougher, Monroe agreed. And our crews can take more punishment. But numbers still matter, Admiral. Harris nodded. Get Commander Cole on the line. I want to speak to our pilots. A moment later, a young face appeared on the communication screen. Nathan Cole was 29 years old and led the fire squadron aboard the Resolute. He had been flying since he was 16 and had never lost a wingman in combat. Commander, Harris said, I need you people ready for the hardest fight of their lives. Cole smiled. It was the smile of a man who loved his work. We are always ready, Admiral. What are we facing? Krath interceptors. Fast, deadly, and there will be a lot of them. But their pilots cannot handle the same forces your pilots can. Use that advantage. Push your ships harder than they think is possible. Understood, sir. We will give them a welcome they will never forget. The communication ended. Harris turned to leave the bridge when he saw Dr. Patricia Reyes waiting near the door. She was 41 years old and served as the chief medical officer. Her face was serious. "Admiral, I need to talk to you about the Valorians." They walked together to the medical bay. It was a large room filled with beds and equipment. Normally, it was quiet, but now nurses and medics were preparing for mass casualties. "Valorians are fragile," Reyes explained. "Their bones are hollow like birds. Their skin tears easily. Their immune systems are weak. If we find survivors, we need to be very careful handling them. A grip that feels gentle to us could break their arms." Harris understood. Humans had evolved on a world where everything was dangerous. Their bodies had become strong to survive. Most alien species came from easier worlds. To them, humans were like giants. "Do what you need to do," Harris said. "Save as many as you can." As he walked back to the bridge, his mind went back 15 years to the day humanity first met the Galactic Council. He had been a young captain then, commanding a small exploration ship. When they encountered the first alien vessel, everyone expected friendship. Instead, they found fear. The aliens had scanned Earth and classified it as a death world. They looked at humanity and saw monsters born from a nightmare planet. Only one voice had spoken in their defense. Counselor Threvix, a frail old Valorian with kind eyes, had argued that humans deserved a chance. He had fought for them when no one else would. Now Threvix was trapped on a burning world, and Harris would move heaven and earth to save him. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Valorian system. What they saw made everyone on the bridge fall silent. The beautiful green and blue world of Valoria was covered in dark clouds. Orange fires burned across the surface. In orbit, 3 massive Krath dreadnoughts hung like predators over wounded prey. Hundreds of smaller ships flew in formation around them, hunting down any vessel that tried to escape. "Sir," Monroe said quietly, "I am reading over 200 enemy contacts." "And how many friendly?" 12 civilian transport ships. They are trying to run, but Krath interceptors are closing on them." Harris gripped the railing in front of him. "All ships, battle stations. Launch all fighters. Our first priority is protecting those transports." The communication system crackled. A deep voice spoke in broken common trade language. It was the Krath commander. "Human vessels. You are in restricted space. Leave now or you will be destroyed. This is your only warning." Harris pressed the reply button. "This is Admiral Daniel Harris of the United Earth Defense Fleet. I am here to protect these people. If you want to stop me, come and try." There was a long pause. Then the Krath commander laughed. "You are only 12 ships. We are hundreds. Your bravery is foolish. Prepare to die, Deathworlders." The channel closed. Monroe looked at the Admiral. "Orders, sir?" Harris pointed at the main screen. "You see those transports? There are families on board. Children, elderly, sick. They are counting on us to get them out alive." He turned to face his crew. "I will not let them down. Full speed ahead. All weapons free." The Resolute surged forward, followed by the rest of the human fleet. Small against the vast Krath armada, they looked like nothing more than insects flying toward a storm. But these insects had been born on a death world, and they were about to show the galaxy what that meant. Commander Cole launched his fighter from the bay and felt the familiar pressure push him back into his seat. All around him, 40 other pilots followed. They formed up and dove toward the enemy interceptors. "Stay tight," Cole ordered. "Watch each other's backs. And remember, they break before we do. Always." The first Krath fighter came into range. Cole squeezed the trigger and watched it explode. The Battle of Valoria had begun. The arrival of the Deathworlder fleet changed everything. Part 3. The space around Valoria burned with weapons fire. Krath plasma bolts streaked across the darkness. Human missiles answered in return. Ships exploded. Fighters danced through the chaos. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Harris watched the battle unfold on the tactical display. The 12 human ships had driven straight into the heart of the enemy formation. It was a move that no sane commander would make against such odds. But Harris understood something the Krath did not. Human ships were built differently. They came from a world where everything wanted to kill them, so they built their vessels to survive anything. Hull breach on Deck 7, an officer reported. Sealing now. Damage to forward weapons array, another added. Switching to backup systems. Harris nodded calmly. His ship was taking hits that would destroy a council vessel. But the Resolute kept fighting. Captain Monroe studied her screens. Sir, the Krath are confused. They expected us to fall back after the first exchange. They do not understand why we are still coming. Then let us keep them confused. Signal the Guardian and the Valor to break left. We will split their formation and open a corridor for the transports. The maneuver worked perfectly. 2 human cruisers cut through the enemy line like knives through paper. Krath ships tried to follow, but they were slower to react. A gap opened in their formation. Transports, this is the Resolute, Monroe broadcast. Escape corridor is open. Move now. We will cover you. The 12 civilian transports turned toward the gap and accelerated. They carried over 200,000 Valorian refugees. Men, women, children. The last survivors of the outer colonies. But the Krath commander saw what was happening. All ships, focus fire on the transports. Do not let them escape. A wave of Krath fighters dove toward the fleeing civilians. Commander Cole saw them coming. All pilots, intercept. Protect those transports at all costs. His fighter screamed through space at speeds that would kill pilots from other species. The D-forces pressed against his body, but he had trained for this his whole life. His hands were steady. His eyes were sharp. He came up behind a Krath interceptor and opened fire. The enemy ship exploded. Then another. Then another. All around him, human pilots did the same. The Krath pilots were good, but they could not match human reflexes. They could not handle the same turns and dives. One by one, they fell. On the surface of Valoria, the situation was worse. Krath ground troops had landed in the capital city. They were moving through the streets, capturing anyone they could find. Sergeant Derek Santos led a squad of Marines through the burning ruins. He was 26 years old, built like a wall, and had been fighting since he was 18. His mission was simple. Get to the government building and rescue any survivors. Contact ahead, one of his Marines whispered. Krath patrol. 6 soldiers. Santos looked around the corner. The Krath were big, covered in gray scales, and carried plasma rifles. They stood outside a building where civilians were hiding inside. Take them fast, Santos ordered. Do not let them call for backup. The Marines moved like shadows. They hit the Krath patrol from 3 sides at once. The fight was over in seconds. Santos kicked open the door of the building. Inside, he found a group of Valorians huddled together in fear. They were small and thin, with blue skin that seemed almost transparent. When they saw the human soldiers, they screamed. Easy, Santos said, holding up his hands. We are here to help, humans, friends. An elderly Valorian stepped forward. His robes marked him as someone important. Santos recognized him from the briefing files. Counselor Threvix. You came, Threvix said, his voice barely a whisper. The Admiral came. He did, sir. Now let us get you out of here. The Marines led the civilians through the streets toward the extraction point. But the Valorians were slow and weak. Some of them could barely walk. Santos ordered his soldiers to carry them. A young Marine named Danny lifted an elderly Valorian woman into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Her bones felt like glass under her skin. "Careful," Dr. Reyes had warned them. "They break easily." Danny held her like she was made of paper and ran in orbit. The battle reached its peak. The Krath dreadnoughts moved forward, their massive weapons charging. If they reached the transports, everyone would die. Harris made a decision. "Navigator, set collision course with the lead dreadnought." Monroe turned to him. "Sir, they think we will retreat to save ourselves. Let us show them what humans do when innocent lives are at stake." The Resolute accelerated toward the dreadnought. The Krath commander saw them coming and laughed. "Foolish human, you will die for nothing." But Harris was not planning to die. At the last moment, he ordered hard evasion. The Resolute scraped along the side of the dreadnought, close enough to touch. Human guns fired point blank into the enemy hull. Explosions ripped through the massive ship. The dreadnought's engines died. It began to drift, crippled and burning. The Krath fleet froze. They had never seen anything like this. A single human ship had just crippled their largest vessel through pure aggression. Warlord Kraveth, supreme commander of the Krath invasion force, demanded answers. "What species are these?" His officer checked the records. "They are called humans, Warlord. They come from a Category 9 death world called Earth." Kraveth stared at the screen. "Deathworlders. They are real. What are your orders, Warlord?" Kraveth clenched his fists. "Retreat. All ships, retreat. We will return with the full might of the hegemony. This is not over." The Krath fleet pulled back. The transports escaped. On the surface, the Marines reached the extraction shuttles with their rescued civilians. The Battle of Valoria was over. Humanity had won. But Harris knew the truth as he watched the enemy fleet disappear into hyperspace. This was only the beginning. The arrival of the Deathworlder fleet changed everything. Part 4. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy like fire. Within hours, every species in the Galactic Council knew what had happened at Valoria. 12 human ships had faced hundreds of Krath warships and won. The Deathworlders had done what the Council fleet could not. Some species celebrated. The Valorians called the humans heroes. Smaller species who had lived in fear of the Krath for centuries began to hope for the first time. But others were afraid. If humans could defeat the Krath so easily, what could stop them from conquering everyone else? The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Every representative was required to attend. The Great Chamber of Harmony 7 filled with thousands of aliens from across the galaxy. At the center, High Counselor Meridax stood with his thin arms folded across his chest. Admiral Harris and Ambassador Wright entered together. They could feel the eyes of every alien in the room following them. Some looked grateful. Others looked terrified. "Admiral Harris," Meridax said, his voice cold. "You disobeyed a direct order from this council. You took military action without authorization. You have created a diplomatic crisis that could tear the galaxy apart." Harris stood straight and met the counselor's eyes. "I saved 200,000 lives. That is not the point. The council must maintain order. If every species acted on their own judgment, we would have chaos." Admiral Yavara stepped forward. He was a Trilosian, tall and covered in silver scales. He commanded the Council defense fleet that had retreated from Valoria. "I demand that Admiral Harris be arrested," Yavara said. "His actions were reckless and dangerous. He put the entire galaxy at risk to play hero." Wright stepped forward before Harris could respond. "Admiral Yavara, may I ask you a question? When the Krath attacked Valoria, where was your fleet?" Yavara's scales shifted color, a sign of discomfort. "We retreated to a defensive position. It was the logical choice." "You ran away," Wright said. "While children were dying, you ran away." Admiral Harris stayed and fought. Which of you is the real hero here? The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted at each other. Some defended the humans. Others demanded punishment. The chaos lasted for several minutes before Meridax raised his hand for silence. This argument achieves nothing, Meridax said. The Krath have retreated, but they will return. Our intelligence reports suggest they are mobilizing their full fleet. Over 10,000 warships. The number hit the chamber like a physical blow. 10,000 ships. The Council Defense Fleet numbered less than 3,000. We cannot win this war alone, Meridax continued. We need allies. We need strength. He paused and looked at the humans. We need you. Harris raised an eyebrow. Yesterday you wanted to arrest me. Today you need my help? The situation has changed. I am offering a temporary military alliance. Humanity will be given command authority over all joint operations. In return, you will help us defeat the Krath. Wright shook his head. That is not enough. We want full membership in the Council. Equal rights. Equal voice. No more being treated like monsters. Yevara shouted his protest. Impossible. They are Deathworlders. We cannot trust them with full membership. A weak voice spoke from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned to see Councillor Threvix walking slowly forward. He was supported by two young Valorians, his body still weak from his rescue. But his eyes were clear and determined. I have something to say, Threvix announced. Meridax nodded. The Council recognizes Councillor Threvix. Threvix looked around the chamber. I was on Valoria when the Krath came. I watched their ships bomb our cities. I saw families running through the streets while buildings collapsed around them. The Council fleet was supposed to protect us. Instead, they fled. He pointed at Harris. This man came. He brought 12 ships against hundreds. His soldiers walked through fire to save our people. I watched a young human carry an elderly woman in his arms like she was precious treasure. I watched human doctors work through the night to save Valorian lives. Threvix's voice grew stronger. For 15 years, we have called humans monsters. We have feared them. We have pushed them away. But when we needed help, they were the only ones who came. What does that tell us about who the real monsters are? The chamber was silent. Threvix turned to face Meridax. I move for immediate full membership for humanity in the Galactic Council. They have earned it with blood and sacrifice. Anyone who votes against this motion should be ashamed. The vote was called. One by one, species cast their decisions. The numbers climbed on the display screen. In the end, the result was clear. Humanity was granted full membership by a margin of 73%. Wright stood in shock. Harris allowed himself a small smile, but Meridax raised his hand. The vote is complete. Humanity is now a full member of the Galactic Council. However, this comes with responsibility. When the Krath return, you will be on the front lines. Every life lost will be on your hands. Harris nodded. We accept that responsibility. Then, prepare your fleet, Admiral. You have 3 months before the Krath reach our borders. Use that time well. The session ended. Representatives filed out of the chamber, many stopping to shake hands with the humans. For the first time in 15 years, aliens looked at them without fear. That night, Harris stood on the observation deck of Harmony 7 and watched the stars. Wright joined him with 2 glasses of whiskey. We did it, Wright said. Full membership. Everything we worked for. Harris took a glass but did not drink. This is just the beginning. 10,000 ships, Kevin. The Krath will throw everything they have at us. Then we will stop them. How? We have less than 200 ships. Wright smiled. You forget what humans do best, Daniel. We build. We adapt. We fight. 3 months is a long time. Harris finally took a drink. I hope you are right, old friend. The fate of the galaxy depends on it. Across the stars, on a dark world at the edge of known space, Warlord Kravith stood before his assembled fleet. 10,000 warships ready for war. He looked at the image of Admiral Harris on his screen and made a vow. The Deathworlders had won one battle. They would not win the war. The arrival of the Deathworlder fleet changed everything. Part 5. 3 months changed everything. On Earth, shipyards worked day and night. Factories produced weapons, armor, and supplies at a pace that shocked the galaxy. Human workers did not rest. They knew what was coming. They knew what was at stake. By the time the Krath fleet reached the border, the United Earth Defense Fleet had grown from 200 ships to over 2,000. It was the fastest military buildup in galactic history, but humans did not fight alone. 37 species had joined the alliance. Some contributed warships. Others provided supplies and support. The Valorians, too weak to fight, offered their medical knowledge to save wounded soldiers of every species. Admiral Harris stood on the bridge of the Resolute and looked at the fleet forming around him. Human ships flew alongside vessels from across the galaxy. Different shapes, different designs, but all united for one purpose. Captain Lisa Monroe, now commanding her own ship called the Defiant, appeared on the communication screen. All ships report ready, Admiral. We are waiting for your orders. Harris nodded. Today we make our stand. Not just for humanity. Not just for the Council. We fight for everyone who cannot fight for themselves. Remember that. The Krath Armada dropped out of hyperspace. 10,000 warships spread across the darkness like a wave of death. They had come to destroy the Alliance and conquer the galaxy. Warlord Kravith broadcast his message to all channels. Surrender now, and I will show mercy. Resist and you will all die. This is your only chance. Harris opened his own channel. This is Admiral Daniel Harris. We do not surrender. We do not run. If you want this galaxy, you will have to come through us. Kravith laughed. Then come through you I shall. All ships, attack. The battle began above a world called Sanctum Prime. Millions of refugees from dozens of species had gathered there, hoping the Alliance would protect them. Transport ships were loading civilians and carrying them to safety. The human fleet formed a Mayovskunda defensive line between the Krath Armada and the planet. They would hold that line or die trying. Commander Nathan Cole led his fighter wing into the first wave of enemy interceptors. Human and alien pilots flew side by side, following his orders. He had spent the last 3 months training them. Now they would prove themselves. Break by squadrons, Cole ordered. Cover each other. Trust your wingman. A young Valorian pilot, flying a ship modified for his weaker body, called out. Commander, there are too many of them. There are exactly as many as there need to be, Cole replied. Now show them what we have learned together. The fighters clashed. Ships exploded on both sides. But the Alliance pilots held their formation. They fought as one, on the ground. Sergeant Derek Santos led a mixed force of human and alien soldiers against Krath landing parties. The enemy had deployed troops to capture the refugee camps. Santos would not let that happen. Stay close, he told his team. Protect the civilians. That is all that matters. A Krath squad advanced toward a shelter filled with children. Santos stepped in front of them. He was one human against 6 Krath warriors. You will not pass, he said. The Krath laughed and attacked. Santos moved like lightning. His fists broke bones. His boots cracked armor. In 30 seconds, all 6 Krath lay on the ground. A small alien child looked up at him with wide eyes. Are you a monster? Santos knelt down to her level. No, I am a human, and I am here to keep you safe. In orbit, The battle reached its crisis point. The Krath dreadnoughts were pushing through the Alliance lines. Their main guns were charging, preparing to bombard the planet. Harris made a decision. All ships, form on me. We are going to punch through to those dreadnoughts. Monroe's voice came over the radio. Admiral, if we do that, we leave the transports exposed. The transports are almost loaded. We just need to buy them a little more time. Follow me. The human ships surged forward. They took terrible damage, but they did not stop. They drove straight into the heart of the Krath formation. Warlord Kravith watched in disbelief. They are insane. No species would sacrifice so much. They are Deathworlders, his officer said. Perhaps sacrifice means something different to them. Kravith made his own decision. Bring my ship alongside their flagship. I will end this myself. The two capital ships came together. Kravith boarded the Resolute with his personal guard. He cut through the corridors, searching for Admiral Harris. He found him on the bridge, alone. Your crew has abandoned you, Kravith said. How fitting that the great human admiral dies alone. Harris turned to face him. I sent them to safety. This fight is between us. Kravith drew his blade. It was a ceremonial weapon, used by Krath warlords for thousands of years. Then let us finish it. They fought. Kravith was larger, stronger by alien standards, and trained since birth for combat. But Harris was human. He was faster. He could take more pain. He did not quit. The fight lasted for minutes that felt like hours. Both warriors bled. Both warriors slowed. But in the end, Harris landed the final blow. Kravith fell to his knees. Defeated. Harris picked up the fallen blade and held it to Kravith's throat. Finish it, Kravith said. I would do the same to you. Harris lowered the blade. I know you would. That is the difference between us. He stepped back. This war is over. Call off your fleet. Surrender, and your people will be treated with honor. Kravith stared at him. You show mercy? Why? Because killing you proves nothing. Because hate only creates more hate. Because this galaxy has seen enough death. Harris offered his hand. Make a different choice. For a long moment, Kravith was silent. Then, slowly, he took the human's hand and stood. All ships, he broadcast to his fleet. Stand down. The war is over. 1 year later, Admiral Harris stood before a memorial on Valoria. Carved into white stone were names. Human names and Valorian names. Alliance soldiers who gave their lives to protect strangers. Beside him stood Ambassador Wright, Counselor Threvix, and representatives from every species that had fought in the war. The galaxy feared us, Wright said quietly. They called us monsters. They thought our strength would bring destruction. They were wrong, Threvix replied. Your strength brought salvation. Harris looked at the names on the wall. Friends he had lost. Soldiers who trusted him. He would carry their memory forever. The war changed everything, he said. But this is only the beginning. We have a galaxy to rebuild. Together. A young child, half Valorian and half human, ran up to them. She was the daughter of a Marine who had married a Valorian doctor. The first child of the new alliance. She took Harris's hand and smiled. What happens now, Admiral? Harris smiled back. Now? Now we make something better. Above them, human and alien ships flew together through clear skies. The fleet that had once terrified the galaxy now protected it. The Deathworlders had arrived, and they had changed everything for the better.